Meanwhile, nations like China and India realized that with some changes of their own, they could compete in this new world. And so they started educating their children earlier and longer, with greater emphasis on math and science. They're investing in research and new technologies. Just recently, China became the home to the world's largest private solar research facility and the world's fastest computer.
Yes, and it's all thanks to you and the rest of the goons in D.C. screwing our businesses over.
So yes, the world has changed.
Oh, yeah, it's the world's fault, too.
The competition for jobs is real. But this shouldn't discourage us. It should challenge us. Remember, for all the hits we've taken these last few years, for all the naysayers predicting our decline, America still has the largest, most prosperous economy in the world.
Dude, considering the state of the economy around the globe, that ain't saying much. Even if it were true. Right now, your pals in China are the most prosperous economy. And with the way you're just printing away the money to cover our exponentially growing debts, we're about to lose our world reserve status, which is going to send all aspects of American prosperity into a tailspin.
No workers are more productive than ours.
At least the ones that aren't being taken over by the unions. But give us time.
No country has more successful companies or grants more patents to inventors and entrepreneurs.
All dwindling at transonic speeds.
We're the home to the world's best colleges and universities, where more students come to study than any place on earth.
Where we can indoctrinate them on how badly the U.S. sucks, on how socialism rocks, how abortion is awesome, and how you can only be free by accepting your enslavement by the government.
What's more, we are the first nation to be founded for the sake of an idea. The idea that each of us deserves the chance to shape our own destiny.
An idea you despise, Barry. You aren't fooling us. This is possibly the most transparent thing about your administration. Your disdain and loathing for the United States, for the Constitution, the principles that made us great, the people who love this country, etc., 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 etc.
That's why centuries of pioneers and immigrants have risked everything to come here. That's why our students don't just memorize equations, but answer questions like, what do you think of that idea? What would you change about the world? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, thanks to the left being in control of education for the past 30-odd years, the kids aren't memorizing equations, and they answer your questions with, what idea? Make everything free! And, what?
The future is ours to win. But to get there, we can't just stand still. As Robert Kennedy told us, the future is not a gift. It is an achievement. Sustaining the American dream has never been about standing pat. It has required each generation to sacrifice and struggle and meet the demands of a new age.
Which you and your ilk have taxed and burdened to such an extent that too many people find it preferable to sit on their butts and collect a government check rather than go out and earn a living. Putz.
And now it's our turn.
It's been your turn, Barry. It's been your turn, and the Democrats' turn, and the Progressives' turn for more than 100 years. I think it's the Conservatives' turn. How about that, Barry? We've been doing it your way for a century, and look where it's got us.
We know what it takes to compete for the jobs and industries of our time.
Again, what's this we garbage? You have never held a real job.
We need to out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build the rest of the world. We have to make America the best place on earth to do business. We need to take responsibility for our deficit and reform our government. That's how our people will prosper. That's how we'll win the future. And tonight I'd like to talk about how we get there.
You actually had me agreeing with this whole last little bit here up until that last sentence. You have no freaking clue how to get there. If you did, we'd be there already, don't you think?
First step in winning the future is encouraging American innovation. None of us can predict with certainty what the next big industry will be or where the new jobs will come from. 30 years ago, we couldn't know that something called the Internet would lead to an economic revolution. What we can do, what America does better than anyone else, is spark the creativity and imagination of our people. We're the nation that put cars in driveways and computers in offices. The nation of Edison and the Wright brothers, of Google and Facebook. In America, innovation doesn't just change our lives, it is how we make our living.
And you will pay through the nose to do it until you decide that it just isn't worth the effort.
Our free enterprise system is what drives innovation. But because it's not always profitable for companies to invest in basic research, throughout our history, our government has provided cutting-edge scientists and inventors with the support that they need.
And then tax the living hell out of them before they could turn a profit.
That's what planted the seeds for the Internet. That's what helped make possible things like computer chips and GPS. Just think of all the good jobs, from manufacturing to retail, that have come from these breakthroughs.
All of whom are forced to build factories abroad or go bankrupt. Thanks, putz.
A half a century ago, when the Soviets beat us into space with the launch of a satellite called Sputnik, we had no idea how we would beat them to the moon. The science wasn't even there yet. NASA didn't exist. But after investing in better research and education, we didn't just surpass the Soviets. We unleashed a wave of innovation that created new industries and millions of new jobs.
And what do you have NASA doing now? Playing PR for the freaking Muslims. How innovative. And let me remind you, Barry, you're the one who cut the funding for NASA.
This is our generation's Sputnik moment. 2 years ago, I said that we needed to reach a level of research and development we haven't seen since the height of the space race. And in a few weeks, I will be sending a budget to Congress that helps us meet that goal. We'll invest in biomedical research, information technology, and especially clean energy technology. An investment that will strengthen our security, protect our planet, and create countless new jobs for our people.
Invest? With whose money, you jackass? Ours? Do we, the people who earned that money, whom you and the DC moochers steal from us every damn day, do we have any say in this? No, of course not. We are just a bunch of stupid, dumb, old, cowardly, gun-clinging bobble thumpers, right?
Already we're seeing the promise of renewable energy. Robert and Gary Allen are brothers who run a small Michigan roofing company. After September 11th, they volunteered their best roofers to help repair the Pentagon. But half of their factory went unused, and the recession hit them hard.
If you were serious about this, you'd be adopting France's model for a nuclear energy program. Didn't you say you wanted to pursue that in your last State of the Union address?
Today, with the help of a government loan, that empty space is being used to manufacture solar shingles that are being sold all across the country. In Robert's words, we reinvented ourselves.
A government loan from our pockets towards a technology that has proven cost ineffective and largely pointless beyond making the buyer feel good about doing something nice for the planet. Well, screw the planet and screw you, buddy. I want my money back.
That's what Americans have done for over 200 years. Reinvented ourselves. And to spur on more success stories like the Allen brothers, we've begun to reinvent our energy policy. We're not just handing out money. we're issuing a challenge. We're telling America's scientists and engineers that if they assemble teams of the best minds in their fields and focus on the hardest problems in clean energy, we'll fund the Apollo projects of our time.
And tax the living hell out of them if they're successful, which they won't be, because unless it gets the green stamp of approval, you'll pull the funding. And if it does get the green stamp, then it is, by default, not worth a tinker's damn.
At the California Institute of Technology, they're developing a way to turn sunlight and water into fuel for our cars.
With fuel cells that are 1,000 times more dangerous to the environment than an acre full of regular old car batteries. Gee, thanks.
At Oak Ridge National Laboratory, they're using supercomputers to get a lot more power out of our nuclear facilities.
You know what would get us more nuclear power? More nuclear power plants. Putz.
With more research and incentives, we can break our dependence on oil with biofuels and become the first country to have 1 million electric vehicles on the road by 2015.
Biofuels that are only a third as effective as petroleum-based fuel and at least twice the price. What a freaking bargain.
We need to get behind this innovation.
You need to get bent, putz.
And to help pay for it, I'm asking Congress to eliminate the billions in taxpayer dollars we currently give to oil companies. I don't know if you've noticed, but they're doing just fine on their own.
No, they are not doing just fine on their own. About 70% of what we pay at the pump goes towards taxes and regulatory fees the oil companies have to pay just to exist. You shut down dozens of refineries during the BP oil crisis, and you're putting moratoriums on almost all future drilling. The oil companies turn less profit than just about any other industry that you can name off the top of your head. Hell, the porn industry is doing a hell of a lot better than the oil industry. Why don't you go and tax them to oblivion?
So instead of subsidizing yesterday's energy, let's invest in tomorrow's. Now, clean energy breakthroughs will only translate into clean energy jobs if businesses know there will be a market for what they're selling.
Which, if there was an actual market for this, rather than a bunch of industry-killing government mandates, we would already have this, and this point would be moot.
So tonight, I challenge you to join me in setting a new goal. By 2035, 80% of America's electricity will come from clean energy sources. Some folks want wind and solar. Others want nuclear, clean coal, and natural gas. To meet this goal, we will need them all. And I urge Democrats and Republicans to work together to make it happen.
How about oil? We really want oil, and we're sitting on more oil than any 3 Middle Eastern countries combined. It's cheap, it's effective, it works, and it's there for the taking. Lying putz.
Maintaining our leadership in research and technology is crucial to America's success.
So naturally, we're going to keep that from happening.
But if we want to win the future, if we want innovation to produce jobs in America and not overseas, then we also have to win the race to educate our kids.
Cutting the business tax rate would do that too, Barry. But this isn't about real solutions. This is about the next election.
Think about it. Over the next 10 years, nearly half of all new jobs will require education that goes beyond a high school education.
Nearly half of all new jobs, all 3 of them.
And yet, as many as a quarter of our students aren't even finishing high school. The quality of our math and science education lags behind many other nations. America's fallen to 9th in the proportion of young people with a college degree.